Hello everyone and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Steve Ryder, fresh off making his debut on Racing TV, is alongside me, and a colleague of both myself and Steve Ryder from Racing TV. Tom Bull is back on Racing Weekly. Tom, you're looking fresh and well. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's great to be back, actually, alongside two such esteemed gentlemen. And I would like to say Steve, I thought, was excellent on his Racing TV debut, so many congratulations. But lovely to be here and reflecting on some excellent racing over the weekend. I thought it really was a top-class couple of days.
How much have you enjoyed the flat season so far?
Really, I think it's absolutely... I mean, I love both codes.
Yeah.
I've always loved them, I'd say, on sort of equally, but it is getting to the point now where you get such great competition on the flat every week, sometimes during the week, that I'm starting to swing the pendulum towards the level, really. It is. So far, it's been proper, I would say. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. Some really good horses on show and potential for lots more to come. Steve, let's just briefly indulge and you can tell us about your Racing TV debut. I caught the end of it. Echo Tom's sentiments. Excellent debut.
Yeah, caught the end of it. The 8:50 at Chelmsford ended up going off at 9:02, so it was a bit of a scramble towards the end
it went
of the
off
show.
that late, actually.
But yeah, it was good. We saw a couple of nice winners. A couple of them could be pattern level performers, but no, the day went well, and I'm back for a couple of more shifts in June, so can't have done too badly.
Excellent. And the last week or so, racing-wise?
It's been brilliant. I echo what Tom's thoughts around the flat season. The fact that the Guineas come so early in the season, it really sets up clashes throughout the whole season. I think that's probably something that Jumps missed. The whole thing is around the Cheltenham Festival, whereas we've now seen Field of Gold in particular. You've seen him at Newmarket this weekend, you'll then see him at Royal Ascot, Eclipses going forward. It really sets up clashes for the whole season.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting time with the Derby not that far away, more clashes to build up as well. We always like to get one horse that has struck a chord or two strike a chord with whoever our guest is. So what have you got for us?
Well, it's actually a horse that ran the weekend that I really think is going to make a mark over slightly longer distances this season, because he started off his campaign over a mile. He went to Goodwood on Friday and he got beaten by Liberty Lane half a length. That is a horse called Aidan, and I think when he gets stepped up to a mile and a half, mile 6, he is going to be a proper force in some decent races. He was really finishing fast, and he's a horse that I've had on my radar for a long time, ever since he won the Cocked at the meeting last year. I think he's one to keep an eye on for the rest of the season.
All right, so Aidan in the Sheikh Ahmed colours for Simon and Ed Crisford. One to keep an eye on, just touched off by Liberty Lane at Goodwood last weekend, or last Friday. Let's get into this week's racing recap. And we start with the Irish 2000 Guineas, obviously. Field of Gold, the horse that had all the attention on him for one reason or another. Let's just deal with the performance, Tom. How impressed were you by the manner of the victory as much as anything else?
Oh, it was stupendous, wasn't it? I mean, what a performance. Amazing to watch. Just like his old man. It was like watching history happen again, wasn't it? I thought it was amazing the fact that Colin Keane was just so happy not to get any cover. Yeah. I thought to myself, there's a little bit of pressure here with Kieran having been jocked off. To ride this race as best you can. He didn't seem to mind too much, but he had so much confidence in the horse, and the horse just sprinted away. His sectionals were really strong. That 7th furlong was very quick. I think it was a 10.7 or a 10.8, which is really fast, particularly in the conditions. And visually, he just looked different class, didn't he? I mean, I'm quite surprised that they seem to want to go to Ascot for the St James's Palace in a way, because I don't think if it's quick ground, that sort of test is going to suit him very well. If I owned him, wouldn't that be really great?
It would be,
it would be amazing. I'd step up to a mile 2 for the Eclipse straight away, but you know, I'm not John Gosden, so.
What did you reckon about what's to come for him and what he did?
It is interesting, because if you take out the trainer quotes around, I think he's an Eclipse horse going forward, I think he's a miler, to be honest. If you look back at the data, finished the speed percentage of 107%, top speed of 41.8 miles an hour. Like, this is a horse with a turn of foot. And I just think he's going to progress. The fact that he settles earlier on in his races, the fact that he just seems to be progressing and growing up through the season will give him every chance of staying that 10 furlong trip. But there's horses that you look at and you think they're going to improve for that step up in trip. And I just don't think he is necessarily going to. I think he's a miler. The only thing that would concern me around Royal Ascot, looking forward to the fact that he's evens for a St James's Palace Stakes, is if he was drawn 1 or 2 and is then stuck on the inside and hostage to a bit of good fortune like Rosalian was last year, waiting for gaps, you'd then slightly worry. But if it's drawn on wide again, Colin Keane will just take the easy passage around the outside and ride him like the best horse in the race.
The other thing as well, obviously, they had a pacemaker. Hopefully, they'll learn from that if they keep to a mile. It was interesting because you touched on the fact that he's even money with Bet365 for the St James's Palace Stakes at Royal Ascot. Henri Matisse is 7-2, Shadow of Light 6-1, Cosmic Year, who was second in Ireland, 8-1, Jonquil 10s. Martin Dwyer, colleague, and who was on last week's show, he was adamant that Henri Matisse would beat.
He was saying it again yesterday on Racing TV. Yeah, he was saying to me off air and on air. Yeah. He's very excited about Henri Matisse in the St James's Palace.
Do you see that?
I think it's going to need an incredible ride by Ryan Moore because the horse needs to be delivered on the line in order for him not to pull himself up in front. And the way that he'll be ridden, Ryan Moore always seems to get in the right position in these races. So do you want to be ahead of Field of Gold or do you want to be behind Field of Gold? I don't know.
What did you think of Dwyer's assertions?
I can see where he's coming from, to be fair. I mean, Henri Matisse so far has done everything right this season, and for all that I don't think he wants a really stiff mile, I'm sure that they'll get away with it at Ascot and the St James's Palace. Often it turns into a bit of a sprint, that race. Can I just comment on the fact that, isn't it remarkable the crop of 3-year-olds that Jumpmont have this year? I mean, it's just phenomenal. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen an ownership giant have a crop like this in any year. You've got Jonquil, who would be, in any normal way of things, have a very good chance in the St James's Palace. You've got Detain. No one's even talking about him. He had run a good race in France. And you've got all the obvious ones, Cosmic Year, Field of Gold, and a couple of others too. So it is remarkable the strength and depth they have. As always,
I mean, obviously, years and years of buying selectively the right horses, but a strong breeding programme that Prince Khaled had back in the day. And I actually fancied very strongly Swelter for the 1,000 guineas.
So did I.
But she disappointed. However, hats off to Lake Victoria, back to her best and hugely impressive in a very good time, Steve.
Yeah, stepped forward hugely from her reappearance at Newmarket. We knew all the trainer quotes around, she's only just starting off there. Any backers of the line in winter for the Derby will be enthused by the fact how far she stepped forward from that Newmarket run, obviously with the line for the line in winter for the Derby. But for a Frankel, she shows loads of pace. Definitely gets it from her Damn Quiet Reflection, who was obviously a brilliant sprinter back in the day. This was a bit of a crawl and a sprint finish, which suited perfectly. Race IQ showed she had the fastest top speed, the best finishing speed percentage, but also one of the shortest stride lengths and the highest stride frequency. So I've heard people talk around going up in trip. Like, if anywhere, I'd be going down in trip. She's got loads of gears. Finishing speed percentage of the race of 111%. Like, they crawled and sprinted, and that suited her perfectly. Ryan Moore, once again, having her in the ideal position.
Ideal position in the end. There was a moment where she was just trapped. I think Holly Doyle was on duty first, just keeping, but he had so much horse. And actually, when you think back to her Breeders' Cup run, she overcomes trouble in running as well. That's 4 Group 1 now. 4 Group 1s for her now. That's a remarkable tally already, and the promise of more to come. She's even money favourite with Bet365 for the coronation.
Aidan OBrien is genius. I mean, we've said that so many times, haven't we? But he just simply is. I mean, the amount of times I've written off horses like Lake Victoria. So I did it with City of Troy before the Derby. I've done it with August Rodin before the Derby. And he just brings them back and manage. I don't understand how he's done this with Lake Victoria, because I thought, given how precocious a 2-year-old she was, how many times she went to the well at the top level, I thought, on her reappearance, well, she's probably just done now. Everyone's caught up to her. She's just going to be a 3-year-old who doesn't really go on. And she goes and produces that. I thought it was amazing. I agree with Steve. I don't think she wants to go any further than a mile. I think she's got loads of speed. She could easily go over 6, I think, and maybe win a Group 1 perhaps later in the career if things don't work out over a mile. Yeah, I mean, the coronation looks a mega race. If the top 3 in the betting turn up, it could be proper, couldn't it? I mean, Zaragana is second in, and Desert Flowers in there as well. Yeah. And you could have So Perfect too. So, I mean, it's a proper race.
I would love to find some betting for something like the Sussex. So let's say just the 3-year-olds. I won't include, because who knows what's going to happen in the Queen Anne. But let's say Field of Gold, Henri Matisse, and Shadow of Light, and Lake Victoria all meet in a race at some point. Who would you fancy in that?
So your colleague Matt Chapman actually put up a tweet and said, Field of Gold and Lake Victoria later in the season over a mile, who would you back? 63% of people would back Field of Gold. And I'm not so sure that I would want to be doing that with the fillies allowance.
Fillies allowance, yeah.
I'm in the Field of Gold camp, I think. I just thought he was remarkable on what he did on Saturday. It was just it was almost a performance that you see sort of generationally. It doesn't come along very often, that kind of effort, I don't think. So, yeah, I think wherever he goes, it'd be extremely hard to beat. I mean, if you talk about the Sussex Stakes, there are others you could throw in there as well, aren't there? The older horses. Like
I kept it to 3-year-olds because I wasn't sure what's going to happen in the Queen Anne. That will determine.
True, very true, yeah.
I mean, I'm expecting Rosalian to breeze through that and then head to the Sussex Stakes, which he'll win as well. But the 3-year-olds, actually, the miling division, all seriousness, with the 4 horses at the top of the market for the Queen Anne, the horses were at the top of the market for the St James's Palace and the Coronation, could be a fascinating season over a mile. Who would be your pick to be champion miler now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Now, champion miler this year. Ruling court.
That's such a good question. Just because I think Field of Gold might step up in trip, even though Steve says that might be the best thing to do. Yeah. I think he might. So, champion miler, I might be a bit rogue and just go lead artist.
Lead artist, okay. Another Juddmonte then.
Yeah, another Juddmonte, yeah.
Champion miler this year, who do you think is going to be?
So I don't think they'll run Lake Victoria against the fillies, given Henri Matisse and trying to create stallions, etc. Yeah. So, yeah, I think Field of Gold will probably end up. I think we've got a really smart crop of 3-year-olds.
Yeah, terrific crop of 3-year-olds. Obviously, they're all playing second fiddle to Rosalian. Aidan OBrien continued his domination of the Tattersalls Gold Cup, or the Group 1 races in Ireland. Los Angeles, I heard Ryan Moore saying that's as good a performance that he's put up under Ryan to win that race. I thought everyone had their chance, bar White Birch, who didn't get a fair run of things, I don't think.
Yes, I think that's fair. I think Colin Keane probably would like to have that ride back. There was a crucial moment, wasn't there, sort of, I think about a furlong and a half to go, when he could have gone outside, tracked Dan Martin, and who knows if he would have won, but it would have been quite close, I think, because there was plenty of horse under him when he finished across the line. And instead he went up the inner and couldn't get a run, and I just really feel for John Murphy, because it's by far his best horse, the best horse he's ever had, and there aren't going to be that many opportunities for him. You know, he's only going to have a few big races in his career. That was one of them, and he had a very good chance of winning on the paper, and I think he would have been very close had he got a clear run. So I just feel for a trainer like him who's, you know, he's got a horse like that, a really, really good horse, and you just need to be able to show what you can do. But unfortunately, the ride wasn't good enough for me. No,
I was surprised that, given the way the race was run and Continuous was making the running and he was on the rail, I was surprised Colin Keane chose the option to stay on the rail. It was a head-scratcher for me.
Yeah, it is a race, a ride that he'll want back, re-watching it again, but everyone makes mistakes. Watching it live, I thought Anmark was coming there to win the race, but in hindsight, fitness probably told Los Angeles had already had that race where he met White Birch. Anmark was obviously making his reappearance, and he's now, 7 or 8, so it probably takes him more to get fit at home. He just ran like a horse, I thought, that was in need of the run in the late stages, but we touched on it earlier around the Lockinge setting up the Queen Anne perfectly. I mean, this race sets up the Prince of Wales Stakes perfectly as well. I thought Anmark was probably the horse to take out of this thinking around Royal Ascot. You've got to think, obviously, it's his Champion Stakes victory at the end of last season as well, so he's got that course form, and yeah, with the benefit of that run under his belt, I thought 11-2 was perfectly fair around Anmark. Although Owen Burrows did seem to want to stress that he wouldn't want a rattling fast ground at Royal Ascot, but we have got rain in and around us currently.
Los Angeles 4-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Prince of Waleses. Economics 9-2, Anmark 11-2, Map Up Stars, Kalpana 13-2. Ombudsman, who might be in the conversation a bit later on today, is 10, same price as White Birch. Anything in that list for the Prince of Waleses, if you had to back something?
If I had to back something, that's tricky. The one sort of fly in the ointment, I suppose, is Economics, isn't he, coming back? Because, I mean, William Haggis, I think, was very mindful of the fact that he didn't want to ruin him as a 3-year-old last year. Didn't go to the Derby, having won the Dante. And I do feel that he had that sort of frame, didn't he, last year? You thought this is a bit of an unfinished article. He's going to really build into his in frame, and I think this year we'll see a 4-year-old who's stronger, more athletic, physical. That's what Maureen Haggis said to me on Friday. that he's really improved physically. So I really look forward to seeing him back. And I think if he improves, then they've all got to fear him because he had some strong form last year. But I think it was always leading up to a 4-year-old, 5-year-old campaign.
I think the run in Ireland where he beat Auguste Rodin, given the fact that he ran his race, Auguste Rodin, probably the best bit of form on offer for that race. Obviously, Anmark won a champion, but Economics did not perform that day. Let's talk about the William Buick day at Haydock. Maghera brought up the 4-timer. I must admit, when we did the show last week, I was looking through her form, saying, "Oh, she's soft ground, question mark. If it comes soft, yeah, fine." But it was quite quick ground at Haydock. And then I interviewed Ed Walker before the race, and he went, "It was quick ground in France." I was like, "Really?" Because it said soft. He goes, "Just ignore that. It's quick. It was quick ground." And she's improved. She's turned herself inside out. 2 out of 2 for him.
Yeah, quite a remarkable story around her as well. I think she's been sold 3 or 4 times. And yeah, it was sold in theory to be a broodmare and come back into training. And she's been a fantastic so far. One in France and one here. This division is just crying out for a star. We just haven't got one, have we? I thought Rumstar might well step up into that, dropping down to 5 furlongs. I didn't see any real excuses for him. Quite disappointed with that. But the fact that the handicappers only raised their £2 to 108 this morning, and the race we'll touch on next, Symbol of Honour's got 110, probably says it all around this division of older sprinters.
Similar sentiment about that race and Maghera?
Yeah, I think they're all much of a muchness, aren't they, at the moment, really? As you say, there's nothing really sticking their head above the parapet. I did think she won well, though, down the near side. I thought it was a good performance. And given that she's not had long with Ed, I wouldn't be at all surprised if she does improve again. On those French going descriptions, I mean, it's 'twas ever thus. But, I mean, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Like, it's just mad. I mean, either they don't really care about just going to write anything down, or they have got it wrong every time. I don't understand. You know, it could be good ground out there. They say it's good ground, and it's soft to heavy in places. It's just mad, isn't it?
We've obviously been sending our going sticks over to France.
She is 14-1, by the way, with Bet365 for the King Charles III Stakes at Royal Ascot. Later in the year, apparently she is going to head to Australia, but the plan is to try. I think after the race they were talking about trying to keep her here because she has to go into quarantine before going to Australia, but the quarantine starts in July. But William Buick was suggesting she would have a decent chance in the Nunthorpe if you lined up for that. So they were trying to convince connections that that should be the option for her. Go to the Nunthorpe and then see about travelling.
Just one I would actually mention from that race.
Yes.
American Affair, who obviously won really well at York. Very recently. He didn't really get a clear run. He was in the wrong part of the track, and I actually thought he closed really well from off the pace. He eventually finished 5th, but never had a chance of winning. He's definitely worth another chance for sure.
Okay. He's clearly still an unexposed horse, I think. Part of the Buick 4-timer, Symbol of Honour, surprisingly came back out just a week after an impressive win at Newbury. Not quite as impressive, but I thought his attitude, as much as anything else, was the key.
That was the thing for me. Yeah, he tried. He really knuckled down, didn't he? And I thought Arabian Dusk ran a mighty race in second. That was arguably a career best from her. But yeah, I thought he showed all the guts to get home in front, having, as you say, had just a run a week earlier. So yeah, it was a good performance. Again, though, it was disappointing for me. I really fancied Arizona Blaze before the race, and
so did I.
I don't really know what happened there. Maybe he went a little bit too fast up front, but it wasn't his true running at all. And Big Mojo didn't get a clear run. I felt like this was a race that possibly isn't the strongest. At least it will work out possibly not that strong form-wise.
Yeah, Arabian Dusk is 20-1 with Bet365 for the Commonwealth Cup, for which Shadow of Light is favourite. No one knows for certain what race he's going to run in at the Royal Meeting. Babouche 5-1. What did you make of Symbol of Honour and Arabian Dusk? 20-1 appeals at all, if anything?
Slightly. It was nice to see her bounce back to form because she's been quite disappointing in her 2 runs so far this season. This didn't look likely for Symbol of Honour throughout the race. It was slightly slowly away, was pretty much first off the bridle, but then showed really good attitude and resolution to get there at the finish. I feel a bit sorry for him. Obviously, they've gelded him, and he doesn't really have a race at Royal Ascot. I then looked at the Diamond Jubilee to see if they could run with an allowance, but you can't. It's a 4-year-old plus. So I think if they're going to restrict geldings to not be able to run in the Commonwealth Cup, there needs to, in theory, be another option for them. Maybe have a look at, now looking at the Diamond Jubilee or the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes. maybe putting in a caveat that you can run in air as a 3-year-old with an allowance.
I think they mentioned possibly July Cup, something like that for him, but still a long way to go for Symbol of Honour. Well done to him, though. Lots of other good racing to talk about. Can I just kick off with something? And that's the last of the Derby trials, which took place this last week, and that's Stanhope Gardens, who I think, if I'm right, Rafe Beckett sort of help engineer, together with the BHA, obviously there is that option, a race at Salisbury, which he won. And of course, his form with Delacroix from last season is excellent. He's unexposed and he is very much a hope for the Derby. Did you?
Well, do you know what, Rish? I mean, I like to think I've got my head to the ground pretty well with racing, what me is to the pulse and all that kind of stuff. But it's news to me that you can just magic up races to suit your horse. I mean, I know that it's a thing that has been done in the past, but it does seem a bit ludicrous that he managed to get this 3-runner, essentially a workout for Stanhope Gardens. And I know that he was supposed to run the Goodwood Handicap over 7 furlongs. They instead went to Salisbury for this new race. But that was only a mile. So I don't quite know how that's a good Derby prep in any way whatsoever. But Rafe Beckett knows more than I do about that. I mean, I think his main charge is going to be Pride of Arras, isn't it? Yeah. He's always said Stanhope Gardens is his number one. Yeah. But Pride of Arras, form-wise, is leaps ahead, isn't he?
Well, Pride of Arras is certainly, for me, the most impressive trial winner. Taking Ruling Court out of it, I'd say that was, of all the other ones, all the recognised Derby trials outside of the Guineas, I thought that was the best one. But Stanhope Gardens, exactly what Tom's saying. Rafe Beckett has not been shy in saying how much he likes this horse for the Derby.
Yeah, I've got to do a runner's guide at the end of this week for the Derby, and it's one of those races where you can make a case for 6 or 7 and not look stupid at the end of it. You kind of, going back to Cheltenham Festival previews, you'd have a really strong opinion and anyone else's opinion was wrong. But I feel like you could make 6 or 7 cases, positives and negatives, around all of these horses towards the top of the market.
Stanhope Gardens at 20-1 for the Derby. Just give you a brief synopsis of the betting. Delacroix and Line and Winter currently 11-4 joint favourites, with doubts about, well, not doubts, but seemingly Ryan Moore was going to ride Line and Winter by most people's suggestions. And then a quote from Aidan OBrien recently in the last 24 hours suggesting that he might ride Delacroix. Ruling Court 4-1, Pride of Arras 92, Damascus 11-1, Lambourne, who's likely to be the third of the O'Brien horses to go for the Derby 20s, along with Stanhope Gardens. Nightwalker's into 33-1. I did have £5 each way on Nightwalker. It's just a horse I like a lot, ex-Doughty horse, etc. And at this stage, you put your money on your Derby ride. What would it be, or your Derby selection?
I think it would be Pride of Arras. That was for a horse to do that coming off the back of a long break like he did at York, and still looking unfurnished, still looking pretty green, to win the way that he did on that far side, just going clear was. I watched that race, and at the end of it, I said, "There's your Derby winner." So I'm not going to go back on that.
Fair enough. You were a Godolphin double coming up again, yeah?
Yeah, and seeing how impressive Field of Gold was in the Irish 2000 Guineas hasn't exactly done bad things for the form of Ruling Court, has it?
No, form frank. OK, we can open it up now to you both. There's loads of other good races to talk about. So, Steve, why don't you kick us off?
Just want to touch on a couple of Aidan OBrien 2-year-olds. I thought Albert Einstein was brilliant. You watched it thinking, yeah, Ryan Moore's teaching him a thing or two here. Was a bit keen in behind, but switched out and was really impressive at the finish. The thing that kind of struck me was the fact that they put a cross noseband on him, that he didn't ride on debut. So whether that's anything to note going forward, but yeah, he looks a horse of immense ability, and they look like they've got a really good crop of 2-year-old colts. Yeah. You've had Italy, Brussels, Gstaad. So last season it was funny with like Fairy Godmother, A Bedtime Story. Yeah. He had loads of fillies, whereas this year the colts seem to be tip top. Brussels, I particularly like the fact that he sprouted wings. A nice bit of Tom Bull in the studio. That. But that was a really nice performance as well on his debut.
So that one of your highlights of the week?
It was actually, yeah. Highlights of the year, to be honest. Just on Albert Einstein, interestingly enough, in Ryan's interview afterwards, he said they wanted to teach him something by holding him up, because they could have gone from the front. He then said, if we'd gone from the front, he would have won by 10 lengths.
Yeah, and the fact that Gary O'Brien spoke to him and said, oh, you've had 3 big winners today, and Ryan kind of stopped him and went, the 2-year-old wasn't too bad either. And for Ryan Moore to be able to go, I want to talk about this horse, says everything really, doesn't it?
100%. I prefer Ryan's interview with Katie Walsh after the, I can't can't remember what race it was. It might have been Porta Fortuna.
I didn't see that.
So, and Katie Walsh said to him, "Really good win by this filly. You know, would mean a lot for Mark McStay, a friend of yours." And Ryan said, "If you say so."
Absolutely blinding. That is tremendous.
Oh, I love Ryan. Sorry. Anything else?
Yeah, you mentioned Porta Fortuna. Like, what a filly to ride. You can see why all the jockeys put their hand up in order to be able to ride her. Because Tom Marquand's ridden Ryan Moore,
He was
Ryder.
absolutely devastated, Tom Marquand, that he had to make a choice and go to Hong Kong to ride Dubai Honour.
Yeah, but she's just brilliant. She's so uncomplicated, can race with cover, without cover. I'm really excited to see her throw her hat into the ring for the Queen Anne as well.
Yeah.
She obviously ran around the bend, won the coronation last year, straight mile. I think she won the Falmouth, didn't she, over a straight mile? So that's
She's
so
honest.
uncomplicated, honest, settles, quickens. She's just absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't give up on Jancis in that race. I put her up in there. I thought Porta Fortuna might be slightly vulnerable on her reappearance. The Breeders' Cup is obviously going to be a big target for them going forward with ownership. And I thought, Jancis, benefit of a run, and just never really got the gap when she needed to. Looking at it, she had the best finishing speed percentage of the race and the highest top speed. So Jancis was well beaten at the finish, but actually I thought that was quite a run that took my eye going forward. She's probably not up to Group 1 level, but she could pick up a couple of those kind of Group 2, Group 3 filly contests over in Ireland.
All right, what about you, Tom? What else would you like to throw into the...
A couple of things.
Yeah,
one of which is Terum at Haydock in the Silver Bowl. I always think for a horse to step up from novice company to win a race like that on handicap debut takes some doing. You've got to be very classy, and he did win in the style of a classy horse. He was off the bridle from quite an early stage in the home straight, but he kept on finding and actually was very strong at the line to win well. And yeah, he looks like a pattern performer in the making. It was a hot handicap on paper. I quite like the chance of King Casper, who ran okay from the front. He didn't run a bad race, but Terum, I think, stamped his class. That was one. The other one, actually, interestingly enough, you just mentioned Dubai Honour, who got into a bit of a speed duel in Chartin over the weekend. Now, it's slightly rogue from me, this, but Voyage Bubble won that race, and he didn't just win it. I mean, he basically didn't come off the bridle. It was a joke.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind that's a Group 1 over a mile and a half, I would love to see him over here. He's not going to come to Royal Ascot because it's too soon. Yeah. But wouldn't it be great here in Ireland just to see him over this country? Because he did travel once to Maidan, and it didn't go to plan. Yeah. But he's an improved performer since then. And the way he won that race was quite phenomenal on Sunday. So I know that it worked out in his favour with that pace battle up front, but I just thought I'd mention Voyage Bubble. He's a proper horse.
Okay. Love the international element of it. So, yes.
Touching on international element, there was a couple in France that were well worth looking at as well. Sosi obviously dropped in trip to win the Prix d'Ispahan at Longchamp, now 10-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Arc. Likely to head to the Eclipse next. And that could be a really good contest. Obviously, Field of Gold has already been muted at going there. I wonder if Ruling Court gets beaten in the Derby, whether they'd come back to 10 furlongs, because stamina is a slight question mark for him. I think if they win the Derby, they're obviously going to go for the Triple Crown, aren't they, and try and make it a crawl and sprint in
If they did, they would take in a 1.25 mile race somewhere along the way. I mean, it might not be the Eclipse, but if they won the Derby, I think they would run something like the Juddmonte or something. Yeah,
but that could be a really, really good race going forward. Sosi, I mean, that was the bare minimum trip in order for that, but that was really encouraging for targets later on in the season. And then Candelari also won, bounced back from a slightly disappointing effort last time, won a Group 1 over just shy of 2 miles at Longchamp on Sunday. Now 6-1 for the Ascot Gold Cup. Another raider for Francis Henri Graffard and the Aga Khan colours coming over to Royal Ascot, hopefully.
Yes, and there's also talk of Carl Spackler, who is the best turf miler in America. He's been purchased by Yulong to go to Australia, and on the way he's going to stop on and run in the Queen Anne, which will be terrific to add to that mix as well, talking about international horses. I'm just going to mention one horse that I saw in person at Haydock on Saturday, and it's Diamond Rain.
Huge.
She weighs 580 kilos.
Blimey.
And again, I know a slight faux pas when I was interviewing, just before I interviewed William Buick, I said to Mark, who looks after her, I said, how much does she weigh? And Will Buick just shouted, he went, that's a bit personal, mate. But 580 kilos, and she looked 580 kilos before the run. I was slightly surprised she won as well as she did, because it looked as if she would need the run. Clearly, she would have needed the run because she's so big. So given her pedigree, she's by Shamadal out of Dancing Rain. I'm sure there's more to come from her. So, against her own sex, I definitely think she's a horse to keep following. That's Diamond Rain. Anything
I thought
else?
it was a good effort. Yeah, I've got one more actually I'll throw in to the mix.
Yeah, please.
Trust Your Instinct won the Arby Stakes. Now, he's a 5-year-old. We kind of know how good he is, or do we?
I love that.
Because...
So like Tomo.
No, please, no. He's improved.
thrown you,
I think,
hasn't it?
yeah, he's
That's
thrown
right,
me.
sorry.
Well, being like it, but do you know what? He's one of the great men. But he's improving. I think he is progressive.
Yeah.
And he won the Arby Stakes at the Curragh at the weekend under a penalty, and he absolutely sluiced him. Now, for me, that was a career best. He's obviously won higher grade races than that before. He's won Group 3s. But under a penalty to beat the field, not the strongest field in the world, it was a listed field, it was a decent field. Romzina back in second is a decent horse, and Magical Hope in third, it looks pretty good too. So to do that in the manner that he did, I think he could well be one for 1.5 races later this season.
And one other horse, Amalok, who won at Goodwood on the weekend. Rafe Beckett's stable is just starting to sing now, isn't it? You know, it's a quiet start by his high standards earlier in the year, but you just feel that it's all bubbling up nicely for him now, and that horse was really impressive. Queen's Vase was possibly mentioned by him for Amalok.
Yeah, obviously.
One or two people mentioned the Derby.
Yeah, obviously it's a gelding.
I want to name names. I'm not going to name names who mentioned him for the Derby.
But if you look at it,
Name names.
for the breeder, like they're both homebreds, aren't they?
Yeah,
to get Amalok and Pride of Arras in the same crop is quite magnificent.
Yeah, and they had Old Cock win on the same day at York as well. Brilliant. Okay, I think that's it.
I mean, do you know what? It's funny because there was so much racing, wasn't there? On Saturday, I was in the office doing some voiceover for Racing Replay, and I kind of felt like at the end of the afternoon I needed to go and have a lie down because it was so hard to follow everything.
It was. I mean, I was peering over to the Racing TV set at Haydock trying to follow the racing in Ireland. James's Delight won the Greenlands narrowly. Big Gossy didn't get a run. Storm Boy disappointed. There was so much just in that one race. There was earlier in the week there was Postmodern who won. Very stylishly, a fancy for the Coventry. It's just loads.
It always makes. I've said it on here previously. I set an alarm on my phone on those busy Saturdays in order to watch the races, and my daughter always says, "Daddy, there's a race you need to watch," and my phone was literally just a constant alarm, and I was like, "I don't even know why I've done this. I might as well just have," because there was so much to try and keep track of.
Stayer as well, earlier in the week. Do you see her? Filly for George Scott, won on debut at Yarmouth. Very impressively. Could be Royal Ascot bound. Okay. She looks very strong as well. So, another race.
Brilliant, so much. And there was a rogue horse who ran behind Frost at Dawn on Friday at Haydock, Rogue Sensation. Ed Bethel said before the race she was going to need it. She ran just like that, but she wasn't beaten far. She actually finished ahead of Unequal Love as well. So exciting times.
Absolutely.
So much good stuff. Yeah. And the good thing is that we have still got lots to look forward to in this show because we have our weekend preview coming up in just a minute. Now, before we get into our Sandown and weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available at every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And so to Sandown and the weekend ahead of us. It's the Brigadier Gerard meeting at Sandown. Quite often it is a meeting that a lot of good horses line up for, a lot of horses that you will end up following through the season. And the Brigadier Gerard looks like it's going to be a very good race. Steve, I'll start with you on this. At the start of the season, a couple of horses in this. Al Mackham, Ombudsman, sort of horses that you expect quite a bit from because they showed so much last year, but with the promise of 2025 being the ones where they're going to really blossom. Yeah,
we don't know how good Ombudsman was impressive last season, but I just thought with the run under his belt, I thought Al Mackham was probably the way to go here. I haven't heard a trainer of a beaten horse so happy as I think I heard Ed Walker that day. He was thrilled with him. Obviously has the course form, won the Heron Stakes at this meeting last season in impressive style. Slightly disappointed on his next couple of starts on ground that's probably quick enough for him. But we've obviously had recent rain. There's rain forecast over the next couple of days. I thought that was going to be perfect for him. Was a head second to JRB at Longchamp in a Group 2, then finished third here on his reappearance. And if you watch that, he's definitely the best horse in the race. Obviously, Al Ardy was on a going day that day. Ancient Wisdom finished second, but Al McCann was definitely the horse to take out of those. No question mark around the trip, the ground, and Asheen Murphy deputises on board. That's definitely no negative with how he's riding at the moment. And yeah, I thought Al McCann was probably the way to go that I'd want to be in this race.
There were excuses for him. I mean, he ran well, actually.
He did run well,
at Sandown on his comeback run, but I think Al-Azi leant over, caused him to have to snatch up. But then what I thought was really good about him is that you could have forgiven him for finishing fourth or just sitting off the back, but he actually picked up again up the hill at Sandown, which is not an easy thing to do, and he was finishing best of all again. Yeah,
and look, probably two of his best starts have come at Sandown now, so we know he loves the track. Everything that Steve's just said, I agree with. I think he's got a really strong chance in that race. I'd actually be interested in another horse as well, Military Order. Now, I know he might be becoming a bit of a one-trick all-weather pony, which is the slight concern. But he has won on turf before, and he won the Lingfield Derby trial. He went off. Well, he was sent off second favourite for that Derby, but he was anti-post favourite for quite a while after that. And I love the way that he won at Kempton last month. It was a really good return, beat Exoplanet, and returned to the all-weather. And although Exoplanet didn't run great at the weekend, I'd be willing to give him another chance, given the fact I still think we haven't seen the best of this horse, I would say.
The fact that William Buick rides him over Ancient Wisdom as well is huge as well.
I think Al McCann is the horse to beat. I do think he's the one that stands out. But I thought Cicero's Gift might be a bit of a play each way. He's had 2 starts at Sandown. He won there last year on his first run, his comeback run, which caught a few people out by surprise. And then I thought he ran a cracking race at Sandown in the Bet365 mile behind Dancing Gemini, where if you watch the race again, Jason Watson's never picked up his stick. He's just hands and heels. He's finished off against the rail. And he promises to stay this trip. So I think he's been over 1 mile and 1. But up to 1 mile and a quarter now, watching the way he finished off that race at Sandown last time and his previous efforts last season, sort of went off the boil a little bit. But I just think each way he's got a bit of a chance of getting in the places. But I do think Al McCann's the one to beat. And
Charlie Hills' stable is starting to purr. Yeah. 2 wins from his last 5 runners. So.
Yeah, happy with that as well. OK, the Bronte Cup. We're going to talk about that race. Perhaps we ought to talk about it in the context of the fact that there's the Leicester Piggott Fillies race. I mean, I don't know how this slipped past the Patton Committee.
But it is
extraordinary.
It is
1 mile
ridiculous.
And a half, 1-3, 175 yards. I think that might have been the difference. I don't know. It's crazy. It is crazy. You when I came in, you were talking about that. You said how many horses are doubly entered?
9. So 9 doubly declared for 2 Group 3s, 1 a mile and 6, 1 a mile and 4, all for fillies over the age of 4. Like it's ludicrous, really.
Make it make sense.
Hands up. I don't know how that's happened.
I have found a bet in it though, because if you look at it, the Bronte Cup is the mile and 6. So you just have a look at the horses that aren't doubly declared and will appreciate this trip, as opposed to having the option of dropping down to 1.5 miles. And I thought that was last year's winner, Term of Endearment.
Okay.
Because she is a proper stayer with no question marks around the mile and 6 strip. She won this race last season under Rachel Blackmore when trained by Henry de Bromhead. Then went on to win the Lily Langtry at Goodwood. Has moved to William Haggis. That's obviously no negative. And she's around 3-1, 7-2 for this. And I thought that was perfectly fair in a race that's definitely going to cut up.
Yes, it will definitely cut up, unless there'll be some extraordinary journeys made in very short space of time.
That would be remarkable, wouldn't it?
What do you like in the Bronte Cup?
Again, it's difficult to know which race she's going to run in, but I like Deina Grace as a mare going forward. She's not had long with Andrew Balding, 2 starts so far. Won her first of those at Newbury in Group 3 and was beaten by Bellum Justum in a Group 2 at the Jockey Club Stakes at Newmarket last time. But there's no shame in that at all. It was a strong race, and back in second was Silver Knot. So the form's pretty hot, really. And she understandably wasn't quite good enough then, but she still ran well. Either race she runs in, I'd be quite keen on her, really. 1 mile 6, I think, might bring out better in her. She's unexposed. She hasn't had 1 star over that trip. So if it does improve her, I can see her going very close in the Bronte Cup. So she's a mare that I'm going to keep on side for the season, I think. OK.
I liked Swano. Ryan Moore already booked for the ride. She was unlucky in her comeback run. Her stable companion Shahar won the race at Goodwood, and she was locked up on the rail. Eventually, when pulled out, they'd gone, and she finished off nicely. She's so much stamina and pedigree. She ran on her debut over a mile. She went straight up to a mile and a half. She won that race and then went to Goodwood on her return and finished well. So, the fact that Ryan Moore was booked so early in the week or jocked up on her suggested to me that he was definitely the best available for that.
Also, in that Bronte Cup, I've noticed that La Isla Mujeres is
beautiful.
Entered. Well, funnily enough, I was about to say, I don't think John Blance usually commentates at York, but he's commentated on this horse before at Kempton, I remember. And because his wife speaks Spanish, his pronunciation, if you get a chance to watch it back, it was just beautiful to listen to.
What a lovely sentiment. Thank you. Thank you for pointing us in that direction. Lovely. I don't know where to go from there, but that's quite amusing. Lovely addition to what we've just
don't really know why I said that, really, but
lovely. Yeah. Okay, so we've all made a different selection for the Bronte Cup. Let's move on and talk about the John O'Gaunt, a race that a couple of horses, one horse in particular I was hoping would be entered in the race, isn't, and that was Tiber Flow, of course, won the race last year. What do you like here, Tom? I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too imaginative with this. I think Arby's got a really good chance in this. Great reappearance when winning at Haydock last time. That was 17 days ago to the day.
Yep.
And I think it was really easy for him in listed company. He went from the front, he travelled well, strongly on the lead. I thought he was a bit keen actually in the early part of the race, but he kept going really well. And as a return, he should come on for that. I think he's going to be really hard to beat. I'm quite keen actually, or quite happy I should say, that Owen Burrows seemingly is going to keep him at 7 this year. I think that's really what he wants. Last year we saw him over 8, we saw him over 10 at Newbury, and I just don't think he wants that kind of trip. He's got quite a lot of speed. Yeah. So to see him on return at Haydock was great. Owen Burrows, up until last week, was operating at a 45% strike rate for this season. It has lowered a touch since then, but I think he's still around about 30% so far this season. I mean, he's really knocking them in.
It's potentially a really good race if Audience and Kinross line up. Kinross's record in recent years, first time out, suggests he'll probably need it, but could be a really exciting contest.
Yeah, it is. This race revolves on which audience turns up, doesn't it, really? Like 2 standout performances last year in the Lockinge and the Lennox, but then was pretty poor on the other occasions. I'd agree with your sentiments around Kinross. I thought he'd need the run. Arby is unexposed over 7 furlongs, and yeah, similar to what you said around that. The thing that catches my eye in this race is the fact that William Haggas is willing to give up a chance of a Wokingham off a mark of 98 with more thunder. Yeah. I mean, he's won twice in handicap company this season over 6 furlongs, beating a Ram on both occasions, who obviously boosted that form when he won at Newbury on Lockinge Day. Step up to 7 furlongs, he's definitely going to suit based on him. Have you seen his first race? They ran him over a mile and 2 on his debut, and then suddenly just dropped in trip, and it completely changed horse. So he's 10-1, which, given his rating, is probably short enough. But the fact that they are willing, or possibly willing, obviously we aren't at declaration stage yet, to give up that mark of 98 for a Royal Ascot win, really does catch my eye.
I'm with him as well.
Are you?
Yeah. I was looking at Tiber Flow. I thought Tiber Flow had run a really good comeback race behind Arby. Yeah. And I thought, right, he'll be back for this race. Then he's not in it. And then looking through the entries, William Haggas has got more thunder. And exactly what's it? Oh, wasn't he going to go for a handicap? Was he going for the Wokingham at Ascot, which would have really suited him? Big field, strong pace, etc.
Stiff 6 as well.
Stiff 6. But then I looked at this race again, and if you remember it last year, Quinault went off at 100 miles an hour. He's in the race again. Sparks flies in the race as well, possibly. So likelihood is it's going to be a properly run race over 7. This is a horse who started his career off over a mile and a quarter, but clearly a strong run race over 6. Both races he's only just got there. 7 furlongs, strongly run race at this level. I think that's the play. He's around 10-1 ish. I thought he was the play. Obviously, Tom Mark 1's already on him, so seemingly the intention is to go there. I expect there to be a really strong pace, and I think he'll be probably finishing as well as anything else. The form of beating a Ram, whilst it's a handicap race, I do think a Ram is a high class handicapper.
I do too.
Potential. I think Richard Hannon himself has said he thinks the horse could end up in high-level pattern company by the end of the season. So, more thunder. I thought at touching double-figure odds at the moment might be the one. Some other good races, obviously Sandown on Thursday. There's the National Stakes, the Henry II. And by the way, news through, and mentioned the Henry II Stakes, which is obviously for the stayers. Kiprios, it's been announced whilst we've been recording this episode of Racing Weekly. Kiprios is to be retired. Sad news, obviously in the light of whatever injury he picked up last time. But what a horse we've been lucky enough to enjoy over the last few years.
He falls into that crop of wonderful stayers that we've had over the years, doesn't he? We had Stradivarius, we've had Persian Punch a few years ago. It's quite a long time ago now.
Yates, Persian Punch.
Yeah, there are so many, but yet there aren't that many, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? There are ones that stick out, and he certainly will be doing that. And yeah, he's been amazing in the fact that he always brought his best game. Usually he did anyway. He was so consistent at a top level, and despite possibly not having the breezing sort of well-travelled style of some, he was a proper grinder, wasn't he? Yeah, he always found plenty. So yeah, he'll be really missed, and it certainly throws the division wide open, doesn't it?
Yes. Obviously, I think we were talking about it last week. Illinois came in for support at the head of the Gold Cup betting. It was on the cards that there was an issue with Kiprios. Sad to see his career come to an end like this, but lucky enough to have enjoyed him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the epitome of a Galileo, isn't he? Strong, resolute, comes back from adversity. He's just fantastic, and it's going to be interesting to see what sort of horses he produces, because he's no doubt going to have a stallion career now.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I'm hoping that they do send some flat mares to him, because I think he kids people into thinking that he's only a stayer. I thought he had plenty of pace when he needed to. So we'll see if they send some of the flat mares, like they used to for Galileo, send sprinters to him and see what they come up with. I hope they do give him a chance as opposed to shipping him off as a National Hunt stallion.
Fingers crossed. OK, any of the other races? I mean, I mentioned those three. The National, the Henry II, the Heron at Sandown, or anything else over the weekend? Do you want to kick off, Steve?
Yeah, I'll touch on the Sandown card on Thursday. I've just been tracking the decks through. The National Stakes, I always like the Richard Hannon stable in this.
Of course.
Previously, obviously won it with Sir Prancelot in 2012, Tiggy Wiggy 2014 and King of Roots the year after. Haven't had quite the same success recently, but they had both of their York winners in there, Ballistic Missile and First Legion. They also had Logie Bear, Harry's Girl and Norman's Cay. So he's chosen just to run First Legion, who was impressive in that York race. That was the race where Wise Approach was fourth, who obviously had that really good form from Ascot. So I thought First Legion was well worth a second look in that National Stakes. The Henry II Stakes, I mean, James Owen is just a fantastic up-and-coming trainer, isn't he? The fact that he could get East India Dock to stay the Chester Cup trip over 2 mile, 2 furlongs, give me hope that he might be able to do the same with Burdett Road. He was too keen last time we saw him on the flat when behind Kiprios in the long distance cup at Ascot. He'd previously won over 1.5 miles at Newmarket. But if he can settle in this, I thought he could turn out to be the best of these going forward. Obviously, he's had loads of racing over jumps and on the flat recently. So I thought Burdett Road was probably the one to take in that Henry II Stakes. And then the Heron Stakes, a quick plug for some oddschecker content. We did a stable tour with George Scott, and he was really looking forward to Bay City Roller.
I remember you saying
coming back.
Your wrap up on that piece, which I watched, excellent.
Thank you. Just wanted a bit of juice in the ground for him to make his reappearance. He was rated 110 after that Champagne Stakes victory at Doncaster last season. Being by New Bay, you'd hope that this step up from 7 furlongs to 1 mile will bring out improvement. He still holds entries in the St James's Palace, the Irish Derby and the Eclipse, and I thought he'd probably be good enough to concede a £5 penalty in this.
All right, Bay City Roller in the Heron. What do you like at Sandown or elsewhere?
Great name for a horse, Bay City Roller, isn't it? Really good name. Actually, funny what you're saying about James Owen. He's managed to get Tara Eaty to win races over hurdles, so he must be a genius. So Thursday at Sandown, a couple I quite like actually. One that I'm really looking forward to seeing again is Saida Hardspun in the National Stakes, filly of Richard Hughes's. I loved the way she won at Kempton last time. Really took my eye. So she'd be one. I think, First Legion must have a huge chance for a stable that does so well, as Steve was saying. And the other one I like is actually in the Heron Stakes, and that is Jackknife, because when he won at Epsom on debut,
narrowly,
but that statement is in itself. To win at Epsom on debut takes some doing. You've got to be well balanced, and you've got to be on your game. And he certainly was, and he won well. Even though the margin of victory was narrow, he was always looking the winner. And I thought that was a very encouraging first start. And Roger Varian, he wouldn't chuck him in here, didn't he? He had a good chance. So, yeah, I'd be looking forward to seeing him again on second start. I think he looks a promising type. But
is it half brother to Defoe? Is that
that's
right?
That's right. Yeah, it'll be tough against some seasoned horses, but he's very exciting. Half brother to Defoe and Karima, who won in Qatar apparently.
Thank you. Excellent, good knowledge. Okay, I liked Opera Ballo in the Heron. I think I mentioned him for the Irish 2000 Guineas, which didn't run, which I think is a better option to go for the Heron. I don't think he'd have won the Irish 2000 Guineas. But I still believe the horse is capable of high-class things. There's no doubt he's got lots of raw ability, but he pulled his chance away when he ran at Newmarket on his first run on turf, having won on the all-weather at the start of the season. So hopefully he settles and there's a decent pace and then he can finish this race off. And I'm with Steve on the Hannon team. In the national stakes. See, I'm a bit older than you. The first Hannon victory in the national stakes, Hannon Senior. You see, do you know who Lyric Fantasy is?
Nope.
No? She was an absolute rocket.
How long ago was that?
92.
So I was hoping they'd run Harry. I was
born.
hoping they'd run Harry's girl in this because fillies have a good record in the race as
absolutely.
well.
And they've
so
won it with fillies.
Yeah, so I was all set, and then which makes me even more confident the fact that they've declared first legion is safe.
Yeah, so that's why I'm going with that horse. But yes, Lyric Fantasy. She won the. No,
Super
I have
Sprint. Heard that name because yeah.
She won the Nunthorpe.
Isn't there a race was named after? I think wasn't there some stage?
May have done, but she ended up. She got beaten by Sayadati in the Tube Park. She was a brilliant 2-year-old.
Who's the best Richard Hannon 2-year-old you've ever seen? Do you think?
Best Richard Hannon 2-year-old?
Yeah, it's quite a hard question.
Oh,
isn't
that
it?
is a tough
I
question.
put Camphor Clifton in the argument. He was
that
very good.
commentary victory was
very good, wasn't he?
Yeah. He would definitely be in the argument, yeah. Oh, God.
Sorry, I put you on the spot
Yeah,
there.
put me on the spot. I'd rather you talk about John Blance's Spanish pronunciations. I much enjoy that.
Can I throw in a couple at Haydock on Saturday?
Please, yes.
The Achilles Stakes, I spoke about Jussur last week on the show.
Yeah.
Said, I was really looking forward to seeing him back over 5 furlongs in the Temple Stakes, and they declared him for a 6 furlong race at Salisbury, and I was kind of head in hands thinking, oh no, what are you doing? This is a horse that's far too keen, especially on his reappearance, having had a wind-up. But he is entered back down to 5 furlongs in the Achilles Stakes at Haydock on Saturday. First run for 258 days, having had a wind-up last time. 100 to 30 with Bet365 at the time of recording, I thought was the most likely winner. And even though there are doubts around that, given how keen he has been previously, I thought he was good enough to worth risking the 100 to 30 price that's currently available. And a filly that I really like is Estrange. She's entered in the Pinnacle Stakes at Haydock on Saturday. Yeah, we've got plenty of rain forecast over the next few days. I'm glad they haven't ran her on fast ground, because if you remember, she was really impressive on her debut at Goodwood on soft ground, then was below par at Yarmouth on fast ground, and then was good again at Doncaster on soft ground when she beat Danielle. She was rated £9 inferior to Danielle that day and raced off level weight. She's a gorgeous big grey horse, type to progress as a 4-year-old, and yeah, this Group 3 looks a really good opportunity. She's around a 6-1 shot for that at the time of recording.
All right, keep an eye out for her. I'm going to mention one horse, so I'm just going to keep an eye out. I don't know if he's definitely going to run, and that's a horse called Fox Journey, an ex-Sir Michael Stout horse. I know this is becoming a familiar theme, but he's now with Kevin Ryan. He's entered to run on Saturday, I think in the first race at Haydock. That's over a mile and a half. So obviously, he just sort of tailed off towards the end of last season, his form, but he had put up 1 or 2 really impressive handicap performances early in his career, but he hasn't had a run. His last run came at Newmarket last August. He hasn't had a run yet for New Connections. I'm just going to be keeping an eye on him because I think he might be relatively well handicapped, given the promise that he showed early in his career and change of stables and all that. So I'll be keeping an eye on Fox Journey if he is declared and he runs in that opening race at Haydock on the weekend. Are we done? Done and dusted?
Can I just throw one more?
Okay.
Just very quickly.
Please. I hope it's got an exotic name.
Well, unfortunately, Riot, so not really.
How would John Blance?
Riot. He goes in the 5 o'clock at York, and he's become superbly handicapped.
Okay.
Down to top marker 77. He's a caution distance we're in the past, so hopefully he'll bounce back to form.
Okay, thank you very much. That is almost it. We still have our best bets to come, but before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge is available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. And so now we come to our best bets coming up this week. So you are first at the crease. You're opening the batting.
Can I have middle, please? I'll go with Arby, actually, in the John Gaunt. Going to make a statement, stepped up in grade. And I know we all have differing opinions on that race, but I think he's going to be hard to beat over that trip this season.
OK, Arby in the John Gaunt for Tom Bull.
Yeah, you touched on an ex-Sir Michael Stout angle. If you remember a few weeks ago, I put up Never So Brave as my best bet at Chester, and he was allergic to a wide draw that day.
Surprising.
Yeah, so 2.10 at Chester, the Roman Day handicap. Now, there are a few Sir Michael Stout horses that have obviously progressed and showed improved form this season since leaving. Those include Fox Legacy, John Quill.
More Thunder.
Yeah.
And it just really caught my eye, the fact that he showed such good form as a 2-year-old. He was second behind Ancient Wisdom, who went on to win a Group 1 later that year, behind Van Dijk, who went on to win 2 Group 1s later that year. Won on his reappearance last season by 4 lengths. He actually won at Chester off a mark of 94, beat Witness Stand. That day, he was in receipt of £3 from Witness Stand. That rival won twice later that season, was rated 115. Never So Brave makes his reappearance of a mark of 101, has been gelded, hopefully gets a nicer draw here, and is generally a 4-1 shot. So Never So Brave to make up for the money I lost anti-post on him about a month ago.
OK, so Arby in the John Gaunt, Never So Brave at Chester for Steve. I was debating between More Thunder, another ex Michael Stout horse, and Swayno. But as you've gone for Arby in the John Gaunt, I'll sway my selection towards Swayno for the Bronte Cup. I like her. She's so unexposed. She's only had 3 runs in her career. She's run up to 1.5 miles. She won on her second start. Her return run at Goodwood, she was hugely unlucky. Never really got into it. When she got into the clear, she actually finished off the race really nicely. Finished behind a stable companion, Shahar, who's also clearly highly rated and might be running in the other big fillies race on the weekend over a long trip. She's stepping up from 1.5 miles to 1.6 miles, but there's loads of stamina in her pedigree at Swayno. So she's my selection in the Bronte Cup. Ryan Moore was booked to Ryder very early on. So hopefully that's a very positive sign for the John and Thady Gosnam combination. Swayno in the Bronte Cup, Never So Brave at Chester for Steve, and Arby for Tom in the John Gaunt. That's it, almost it. Where are you out and about this week, Tom?
I'm Kempton tomorrow. What am I doing the rest of the week? I'm at Stratford on Friday night with Lornie Hill as my pundit.
Is she making her debut as well?
Yeah. I don't know. I think apparently she's done some years ago, I think.
Okay.
So that'd be
inspired by Steve Ryder, no doubt. Back to it.
Exactly. And I'm going to a vineyard on Saturday for a wine tasting, so looking forward to that.
What a week. What a man.
I'll be cheersing Arby as he comes home in front.
What about you, Steve? How far away are we from the return to the crease?
Oh, it's midway through Newmarket. I looked it up, so it's a Newmarket night. It's a Ministry of Sound night.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to have to take a change of clothes in order for be able to be at the Ministry of Sound afterwards.
Okay.
I'm actually going as a viewer to Sandown on Thursday.
Okay.
So
nice.
going there, having a few beers on Sandown on Thursday evening, which would be nice.
Okay, we'll cheer on Opera Ballo and the Heron.
I won't.
No. But that is it for this edition of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Many thanks to Tom Bull for making it in, looking so well and so fresh, and Steve Ryder, as always. You did look well and fresh.
Thank you very much.
Considering your strenuous day in the studio yesterday. If you like what you've heard or seen in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Have enjoyed the comments in the comment section on YouTube. It's been quite entertaining. Got some right, got some wrong, which is always the way. That's how it works. We'll be back next week to have a look ahead to the Derby and Oaks. Steve's going to be in this chair, and Lydia Hislop and Richard Hoyles will be either side of him. He's still to decide the seating plan. But for now, from all of us here at Racing Weekly, bye-bye.